Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I thought I would share my painted Soviet force for Flames of War with you. I've many more units painted up for the Soviets than either British or German. I'll show those off later when I've got more painted. Let's have a closer look at everything. We'll start with these two Battlefront IS-2s. They came from the ISU-122 and 152 boxes. One is obviously a nice pink tank. I wanted a pink tank, so I painted myself a pink tank. It made sense to me because I only needed one IS-2 to act as the command tank for an army of ISUs, so I only needed to paint one of those to match. The pink one usually resides on my desk at work. I've seen a picture of an IS-2 painted pink, so it isn't too far-fetched. Up next are my 5 Plastic Soldier Company IS-2s. These are the first models I filmed myself painting. I'll link that video here. These models look a lot neater than the Battlefront version and were a pleasure to build and paint. You can see I added extra stowage on a couple of the tanks. Over here we can see my Battlefront ISU-122s and 152s that came with the IS-2 command tanks. I bought 2 boxes of these so I could use them as a main part of an army. I wanted options though, so I built them with magnets in the gun barrel and inside the mantlet. It was a bit of a pain in the arse, but I think it was worth the effort. I really like the logs and stowage on these models. Next to those we can see my Battlefront KV-85s. I bought these because I wanted a heavy tank platoon and I figured they would be better than KV-1s. Also, I think the turret looks cooler on these. These models were a bit plain detail-wise, but I think I made up for that with the paint job. Also, I improved the model by making my own hull and turret rear machine guns using brass pinning rod. Moving over here we can see my small swarm of T-34-85s. Every Soviet army needs their T-34s. I have 10 from Plastic Soldier Company, which are very nice models. They also come with turrets to make them T-34-76s, but I neglected to film those. These are the first models by Plastic Soldier Company that I ever built, and if I remember correctly, the second set of 15mm scale tanks that I ever painted. The first 15mm tanks that I painted were these here Battlefront T-34-85s. I really like these models. The stowage on them is quite nice. You can see they're not quite as heavily weathered as some of the later tanks that I've painted, though I think I did a nice enough job. They look as though they might have just come from some kind of parade of new tanks and are now ready to head out to the field of battle. Let's fly over here and look at some infantry. This is a platoon of heavy machine gunners. I think I did a good job painting these, though in all honesty I don't much enjoy working with or painting 15mm scale infantry, which is the reason I haven't got any German or British infantry yet. I do enjoy basing them though. These are based on Battlefront's plastic rural bases, which are quite nice. Over here we have the Min-Aeron's T-26s that I recently painted. If you'd like to see more of them, you can see them in yesterday's video. Here's a link. Over here is a platoon of Riflemen. These are the most recent Flames of War infantry that I've painted, and I think they're ever so slightly better than the others. I made the bases myself with green stuff, some resin tree stumps, and other odds and ends. I used Flames of War tanks to press the track marks into the green stuff. I think I've managed to effectively convey a platoon urgently rushing across open ground towards their enemies with these infantry models. Moving along we can see these Battlefront BA-64 scout cars, a whole swarm of them. I think these are pretty funny looking. I'm pretty happy with the paint job I did on the vehicles, not quite so fond of the crew figures. Not much more to say about these really. And now for some more infantry. These are mortar teams, in case you couldn't tell by the mortars. This is another unit based on Battlefront's rural bases. I like to have my infantry stands be as interesting as possible. I try to set them out as though they have a purpose and a story, rather than just random soldiers standing around pointing their guns, and I think I've done a reasonable job in that regard. Let's go over here and check out what I have for anti-air defense. These M17 multiple gun motor carriages from Battlefront. I really enjoyed the way these look, so I had to buy them. These kits were kind of interesting to build in that they have metal, resin and plastic parts. They greatly benefit from having plastic tracks rather than metal. Some of the decals on these are a bit meh, but overall I think they look alright. They're nicely scratched up and dirty looking. And again, I'm not super happy with the crew figures, but they're good enough. And right behind those I have these Su-57 assault guns. I bought these for much the same reason as the anti-air version. The paint on these is a little bit different. It looks kind of more bluish, and you can see the decals are a bit worse than on the AA version. I think they turned out alright though. If you look closely, you can see the arms of some of the crew figures are positioned differently. I bent them downwards so there would be some variety in the crew. And over here we have 10 of the Battlefront plastic Su-100s. These are the very first plastic Battlefront kits that I put together and I really enjoyed them. I think I did an alright job in painting them, though you can kind of tell I went a little overboard with the scratching and chips in some places. Not too bad though. This kit would be greatly improved if they included some stowage and logs. Soviet vehicles need logs. And finally, we have this flying tank, aka Sturmovik. I was pretty happy with how this, my first Battlefront plane, turned out, and you can watch me painting this by clicking the link here. I quite like the hint of blue the windows have. It's probably a little bit dirtier looking than it really should be, but I like it. So, that's my entire painted Flames of War Soviet force so far. I hope this has been interesting for you. I'd like to hear any comments you might have in the appropriate location below. Thanks for watching. Farewell.